Okay, fasten your seatbelts because this just went haywire. YW Melly's the ex-girlfriend just revealed something shocking. That might turn this whole murder case around, upside down, and no one anticipated this. She merely disclosed that it's the type of comment that raises doubts. Everything you believed you understood, think you've heard it all in this case. Consider this again. What if I told you that Melly is no longer the only focus of this? What if a completely new layer is added to betrayal is a part of this scandal? Dishonesty and possibly a cover-up greater than we ever thought. We would be discussing secret motives, discussions, and a lie-telling game. So twisted that even the movie industry couldn't. This is the most insane and better part of the script. There is concrete evidence, or at least that's what certain unnamed sources assert. Did his ex just set up YW Melly? Verify the impossible? Or is this just one more desperate attempt to turn the story? We're going to reveal everything down at the moment, but before we go in, make sure you're listening. Since after hearing this, there's no okay, all right? Let's begin from the beginning, since our focus is to discover is going to cause a stir. In unexpected ways that we are all aware of the reasons behind YNW Melly's legal issues. The double has been making headlines for years. Charges of murder, the drama in the courtroom, the between his legal staff and himself and prosecutors, it hasn't stopped crazy. But what if I told you? A component has been absent from this. Case from the beginning, and the missing component simply stepped moving forward with some grave accusations. YW. One of Melly's former girlfriends, who has been remaining silent over this entire ordeal, she had finally spoken up and trusted me. When I claim that she didn't refrain from covert discussions leading to startling allegations, she's revealing information that might totally alter our perspective on this instance. But before discussing what she disclosed, let's go back a little and take a break, explaining why her involvement is so significant. For those who are unfamiliar with Melly's, an ex-girlfriend is not a random. She was a person from his past. At the most important moments, she was aware of him before, to notoriety throughout his ascent in the sector, and, more significantly, in the days preceding the event that put him in prison. And based on sources she may be far more knowledgeable about than she has been, revealing the fact that during the course of this case, there have been unsubstantiated whispers reports that someone close to Melly had additional knowledge regarding what transpired that evening than they first acknowledged. But now it appears that the whispers weren't merely unfounded rumors, because if his ex is asserting that this case is set to take a turn for which nobody was ready. However, this is where things really get interestingly. According to certain authorities, Melly's former partner wasn't your typical girlfriend, who supposedly was someone he told him things he shouldn't have discussions that, if disclosed, could be the parts of the puzzle that prosecutors are missing. Been searching for, and if you believe, wait until you hear it. That sounds ridiculous. What she stated in a confidential discussion that recently came up, insiders claim that Melly's ex said to have informed close pals that she was frightened after learning what actually occurred the night she supposedly knew something was about to occur prior to the murders even occurred at this time. Whether that's either the truth or mere conjecture is still unknown, but one thing is for sure. She doesn't just say things at random. She decided to break now for a purpose, her quiet and not to be forgotten, Melly's. The legal team has been putting up a strong fight to suppress specific pieces of evidence. Could it be that his former partner is aware of a portion of that classified data? Did she seize something that the general population doesn't likely to be aware of? Or even worse, may she have contributed to keeping everything under control? Concludes, the situation becomes even more chaotic. When you think about what's going on behind the scenes, sources assert that Melly's group has been making an effort to subtly manage the matter with his former partner prior. Things continue to spin out of control. But here's the issue at first. When anything like this is released, there isn't preventing the media from following it, and the results are already being seen. Transpire in real time, and naturally, the internet jumped on this right away. As soon as it was revealed that Melly's ex had social media went crazy with spoken-out speculations that some individuals think she's speaking the truth, and Melly's been concealing something from others all along. believe that this is simply one more distraction. Frantic attempt to divert attention from the case when things don't seem promising for him. However, there is also the side that thinks something more sinister than Melly's former partner has been coerced into speaking up, perhaps by those who would prefer that he not walk freely and truthfully, considering how wild nothing appears to have changed in this case thus far. Too unrealistic at this time, so let's keep in mind that this isn't the Tangled has been Melly's name for the first time. In the midst of turmoil, let's take a step back and review some important occasions that preceded this event. Recall when Melly was initially detained in the crime was based on some damaging evidence against him. Ballistic evidence reports surveillance, despite GPS data that was refuted in the footage. According to his initial account, prosecutors have been illustrating the image of a rapper who was having two lives at once. He was a budding artist, the next he was reportedly planning an offense that startled everyone, but during the entire, there was one significant fact that didn't fully sum up the part that those in his immediate vicinity who were aware of who engaged and who was remaining silent to safeguard themselves, which is where his ex arrives. Those involved in the case are claiming that her latest remarks would give important information on what actually occurred that evening, and if it's accurate, we may eventually receive responses to some of the most significant unanswered questions. But the actual query is, why is Melly's ex voicing their opinions at this very point? This is where things get even. Wilder pivots because recent sources indicate that this is more than just her sharing her perspective on the narrative may be about self-protection. Consider whether she actually is aware of a potential shift the situation, she's in danger. Position, either she remains silent and dangers of becoming entangled in this quagmire, or she raises her voice and makes an effort to. Regardless of what happens next, and if history has given us any insight, it's that individuals who approach the truth too closely in prominent examples, they typically don't leave unscathed. And it appears that this is regarding to rank among the most significant, turning the entire trial at various stages, because as soon as this tale began to traction, another shocking revelation was made, and it includes proof that might radically alter the course of this. For example, when the internet was yet attempting to comprehend the shocking revelation discovery from YNW Melly, another fragment of evidence emerged that escalated the situation to a completely new level. And I'll tell you, here's when things start to get really disorganized due of what's being. If the information is accurate, we could be examining a full game changer in an already crazy situation. Recall how we discussed certain pieces of evidence being silenced by Melly's defense attorneys. According to reliable sources, a fresh leaked. The discourse hardly touched the surface. That purports to demonstrate that his ex wasn't merely actually a bystander in the situation. Now, there are allegations that she may have been far more involved than anyone first believed that before we went any. Additionally, let's clarify that this is still growing, and there are numerous contradictory stories. But we do know what is that investigators are now extremely eager to hear Melly's ex's thoughts. According to some accounts, she was investigators recently contacted for a follow-up, and in the event that it is, then we may be witnessing a significant development directly in front of us. So let's take a back seat, since we must discuss. This purportedly leaked conversation actually includes, based on the interior sources for this report on the conversation was said to have occurred only a few days ago, prior to the deadly event. And if you considered the specifics of this case were already suspect, and this is simply enhances the mystery further, since it seems that Melly's former partner was having some extremely alarming discussions with those with knowledge of the situation, purportedly. She mentioned how things significant event was approaching and that she had advised to keep quiet at this time. If this is indeed, it begs the important question of who told her and why, but it continues. Because of this same discussion, additionally, she purportedly stated that Melly was acting strangely and he was aware of it. Something was about to collapse once more. All of this is alleged, but if it's accurate, presents a completely different image. Compared to what we've been told, let's take a moment to reflect, as this is where, after this, things get even more bizarre. People began leaking conversations, investigating Melly's ex's social media history and their findings. Let's just say that it brought up a lot of, apparently, there were a few extremely Instagram stories and cryptic tweets posted during the incident's period messages that didn't appear to be too suspicious. But now I'm examining them. They may simply be disclosing much more. Then we became aware that one of the posts purportedly created a few hours after the "Sometimes you have to do what murders read. What you must always do is the truth seems now. I'm not sure about you, but that sounds like something you wouldn't post at random after learning about your ex has been charged with 2 murders," and the internet, of course, erupted with, was she implying anything, according to theories? Was she already aware of what transpired prior to the news's release, and if so, why did she remain quiet for so long? This is where the actual dispute begins, since as soon as these previous postings resurfaced, Melly's ex was thoroughly destroyed. I am referring to her social media accounts, Instagram stories, and deleted tweets, even removing followers who are commenting on the subject too much at this time. Let's face it, when someone unexpectedly enters complete damage control mode, such as that, it typically indicates a problem. And it was hardly long before people began putting the pieces together, because as soon as her post began to disappear, and even a larger piece of information emerged. Something that might explain why she is now speaking up, as per claims that Melly's former partner has supposedly been having her own legal issues, which is, yes, it seems that she has been noticed. Using the police for an entirely distinct case, and some sources believe this might be the true cause of her suddenly choosing to speak. Here's where the conjecture originates charts, as she's actually being looked into something unrelated. Then, one of 2 things could be implied by this. She's attempting to negotiate by offering up fresh details on Melly in return for legal defense. She's under pressure to speak, perhaps even by those who wish to watch Melly fall, regardless of the timing is far too dubious to overlook. And remember that this isn't the first. When was the last time we saw something like this occur in well-known examples that we have observed? It keeps happening that someone stays. Years of silence, then suddenly, just as the trial is becoming more intense, they abruptly reveal new details. But this is where things get much more sinister, since it seems that Melly's the ex is not the only individual who has been conversing with investigators there lately. Are currently reports that other individuals from questions are being raised about Melly's past, including those who were formerly a part of inside his immediate social circle. And if that doesn't cause alarms to go off, I'm not sure what occurs, since, let's face it, if suddenly a number of individuals arrive, moving forward while simultaneously making new claims, when there's something going on behind the situations that someone is attempting to capture Melly down, or there's concrete proof that people were afraid to disclose thus far. But this is the million-dollar inquiry as to what this implies for Melly's situation. That's where things begin to become quite erratic, because if prosecution are able to demonstrate that Melly's ex truly knew more than she first thought, acknowledged, that might result in new evidence presented in court, and if that works out, let's simply say Melly's situation could get really awful very quickly, swiftly. But there's more to this, that we must think about what might be merely another effort to produce justifiable doubt. Consider it if the defense team for Melly can demonstrate that the ex only speaks up for herself. Personal benefit, then that might actually, if they can disprove Melly's case, her claims, and give the impression that she is merely speaking in order to escape difficulty, then her testimony may not withstand in court, and that's precisely what some people think that this is happening. Now, so, let's face it, why would she waited this long to speak up if she actually possessed knowledge that may alter the situation? Why not raise your voice sooner? Why now, while things are getting hotter? These are the inquiries that are asked in court. Currently, everyone is inquiring, and, to be honest, nobody knows the solutions. But there is no doubt that this is far from over, because it appeared as though, in this scenario, we haven't seen everything yet. Another shocking revelation was made, and this one, Let's simply say that it may be the greatest twist to yet, and right when you believe that this case couldn't receive any even more bizarre, another startling turn has totally changed the story because it's not simply Melly's ex anymore. Revealing shocking information about a new observer taking center stage and allow me to explain what they're saying is even somewhat accurate, then this instance only took a direction that was unexpected. Based on reports that have been leaked, and someone directly connected to YNW Melly has recently revealed explosive new details, and no, we're not speaking regarding some arbitrary online trolls creating "we are discussing crazy claims," someone who was purportedly present, who could have witnessed everything disappear? Down that evening already before we start, let's talk about what they're really saying about the significance of this due to the fact that the prosecution's case has primarily relied on forensic proof SMS messages as well as Melly's own extremely dubious actions following the event. But what they lacked was first-hand observer who could truly bring Melly to the scene and make sure what actually went well could be shifting because, based on internal sources cited by this new witness, that they had direct communication with Melly a few hours prior to and following the incident, and if it's accurate, it might dismantle Melly's defense completely. Approach. But this is where it becomes even more startling as it seems that the witness goes beyond simply stating that Melly was entangled. They claim that Melly admitted that's correct, purportedly in a private discussion that was never Melly is expected to see the light of day. Allegedly acknowledged that the whole it happened precisely as the prosecutors had predicted. Have been asserting as of late if that's the case, then Melly's attorneys are in major issues since this isn't just a few hazy circumstantial signs that is an unambiguous admission from someone who supposedly knows everything on. But wait, this is where things get quite fascinating as soon as Melly's crew was devastated by the news of this witness. Jumped straight into full-fledged defense manner and how they react, let's just claim that they actually don't believe it. Based on people close to Melly's, they think this so-called witness is real, is lying. Yes, they are asserting that this individual is either under duress or into giving a statement, or is simply making items up in return for some sort of agreement. And to be honest, that wouldn't be unexpected since we must remember this. This is not the first time we've seen someone abruptly appear in a high-profile instances with conveniently timed testimonies. Recall how Melly's former partner remained quiet for years until abruptly choosing to voice our opinions. We now have another person doing the same thing event, and the people who support Melly, oh, they have some ideas about this, please. Due to the fact that as soon as this news, social media on the internet took off with hypotheses that some people think the witness is being truthful, and that the entirety of Melly's act of innocence has been just a front, but to others they believe that this is merely a frantic endeavor to add the finishing touch, one more push in Melly's coffin to make sure he never again walks free. And to be honest, both sides have very strong arguments, as on the one hand, if Melly was really close to this witness, and did really hear a confession at that time, that's the type of game-over situation, that proof that may be used alone to seal his destiny. But in contrast to this, if someone is lying, then the prosecution is becoming desperate, and Melly's defense unit did just that, is now attempting to demonstrate that they are already investigating this person's history in an attempt to locate anything that would cast them in a negative light, since they may demonstrate that the alleged witness, has a track record of lying, shady transactions, or even legal issues of their own. They may perhaps obtain. Their testimony was rejected outright. However, we must remember that there is still one significant wild card in this instance that nobody is discussing, because behind the scenes, there has been an additional enigmatic person with a role in the matter who could be in possession of the actual key to discovering the truth, and that someone right now. Yes, Borland, it's been a long time. Co-defendant and friend, the only other someone who supposedly accompanied him that, tonight, this is what Borland has. Remained comparatively under the radar during the whole trial, while Melly's court appearances have been intermittent, generating news with each update. Although Portland has been cautious, that may be changing now because based on the report, Portland has been experiencing private meetings with his legal team that some people think might be connected to a possible agreement, and if so, then all we believe to be it's possible that this trial will soon alter. Since, let's face it, Portland abruptly chooses to turn on Melly, then there will be a first-hand account soon, from a person who is actually there. Such testimony is the type that no quantity of defense tactics could correct, and Melly is aware of the scariest aspect because, since the beginning of these rumors, people in circulation have observed there's something fascinating about Melly's. His demeanor has become much more guarded. Less than usual. No more grandiose declarations, more outrageous assertions of innocence, merely quiet. And for someone who invested years attempting to persuade everyone that silence is not what he did. Deafening. But the true query is this: why are you doing this now after all this time? Suddenly, people are coming out with new information. Is it since they have at last mustered the bravery to speak the truth? Or is it due to someone dragging the strings in the background to ensure Melly will never be able to move freely again? At this moment, it's impossible to predict which way this case will proceed because, although the prosecution is moving more quickly, Melly's defense unit is putting up a stronger fight. More convincing evidence that everything is said is really a setup, and with that numerous moving parts, covert objectives, and it feels like last-minute bombshells. Although this issue is far from resolved, one thing is unquestionable regardless of what occurs afterward. Since it's going to blow up, I must inquire, what do you believe to be W? Melly is at last prepared to face justice. System for what he is, or supposedly did. All of this is only a single enormous endeavor to remove him, and leave your views in the comments below, because I can assure you that you're going to desire to participate in this dialogue, and if you haven't already, be sure to switch on and subscribe. Notifications because of how crazy this situation is making you want to miss the next event, which is far from over, and believe me, when the next turn drops, you are already aware that we will be present to break everything down for you in this instance, become increasingly crazier every day, and you already aware that more drama is on the horizon. What do you actually think YNW Melly is? Is this all a setup drop, or are you guilty? Your opinions in the comments section, we're reading all of it, and remember to, if you want more, click the like button. Subscribe for case updates and turn on notification because you don't want to miss it, I promise. What occurs next, we'll return with more startling information will be released soon.